The Prepper Podcast, Episode 21.
We've got to know whether or not they're presidents of Christ.
The American people would never vote for socialism. He said, under the name of liberalism, the American people will adopt every fragment of the socialist program.
The Prepper Podcast is an up-to-date survival podcast based on military, wilderness, and modern-day survival and may be found at theprepperpodcast.com. I am Ken Jensen, and this is the podcast about everything survival. This is episode 21, and today I am going to be discussing farming with animals. Today's show notes may be found at theprepperpodcast.com/021. I just wanted to recap with you guys how many listeners I have right now. I have about 1,800 listeners. I've had 1,800 listeners on episode 18. 19 and 20 are not quite as high as 18, but usually it takes a couple weeks for the trickle of listeners to come in and for me to see how many people are actually listening to each episode. So right now, I'm going to give my official number is about 1,750 to 1,800 people. I think that people may have gotten scared off or something like that. I have no idea, really. But it kind of fizzled out a little bit whenever I did the stuff over money and the Fed. But that, like I said, may just be because everybody hasn't come in yet that normally would listen. Sometimes it takes people a couple weeks to get to their podcasts. I know it takes me a while. Next up on the housekeeping is the Prepper Podcast call-in line. I just want to remind you guys to give me a call at 978-KNOWS-IT, and that would also be 978-566-9748 for those of you who don't have letters on your phones. I still need more volunteers for the testing of my survival budget, the beta testing. Just go ahead and email me, and that is Ken at theprepperpodcast.com. That's Ken at theprepperpodcast.com. And if you go to theprepperpodcast.com, I also have many locations in which you can find my email address so that you can email me and just let me know. Put something like beta testing or testing for budget or something like that in the email, so that I know what's coming in, okay, so that you don't get filtered out or anything like that. I need to pay special attention to those so that I can get you guys into the beta testing group. I'm going to probably start a little group of the people who are beta testing so that you guys can talk to one another and talk to me. And we will have our own little group where we email back and forth, and everybody gets a chance to speak. Everybody gets a chance to talk about what they would improve and what they like about it. So the beta testing is actually going to be probably a lot of fun for whoever is doing it, because not only are you going to be doing the budget, but you're also going to be discussing it with others. So there is a lot of accountability and stuff like that you could have involved. And this is all going to obviously be free of charge for any of the beta testers. So go ahead and email me, and then I will send out the instructions once I have enough people signed up for the beta testing. All right. Now let's get into our discussion. We want to discuss, and I just came up with this on the fly, guys. I'm going to discuss the advantages and disadvantages, the needs, the labor for, and the food requirements for, and the disease concerns of different farm animals like chickens, bees, goats, guineas, ducks, and there's all kinds of more. So let's get started, because if I don't get started, I have a feeling that this one could run really long. And if there are any of you guys out there who currently are on a homestead or a farm or something like that, and you want to be on the show, and you want to give me your experience, and you want to be kind of like an expert or a guest on my show, go to theprepperpodcast.com/guests. Okay, theprepperpodcast.com/guests, and then fill out the appropriate form on that page, and it will send me an email with all the information that you filled out, and it will go directly to my email. It will not hit the spam or anything like that. It will come straight to me. That's a good thing, and then I will get with you. But my main thing that I do guests and stuff like that on is Skype. So if you don't have Skype, I'm going to tell you that you probably need to get it, and then you're going to have to give me your Skype username so that we can do the podcast. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first animal we're going to talk about is chickens. This one is the one that I'm really big on because chickens are the one that we've had the most experience with here at our little domicile, and we really enjoyed having them. We had chickens and ducks and rabbits and all kinds of smaller animals. I have not had cattle or anything like that because I can't have those yet until I get a new property. And believe me, that plan is there. Just like I tell every one of you guys, you need to take small steps in your preparedness to get to a final destination so that you're not going all over the map and ruining your chances of being prepared. I, as well, am taking small steps. And that includes, the debt stuff, and that includes animals, that includes gardening, and that definitely includes permaculture. So, back to the animals. We're going to talk about chickens. The advantages of having chickens is, my biggest advantage with the chickens is, oh my goodness, they are funny to watch. They are hilarious. Every chicken it seems like every single chicken has its own personality, and watching a chicken is just funny. One day, and I posted this on Facebook, but one day I was outside watching the chickens, and for like 30 minutes, and then I stopped and I paused and I realized, wait, you were just standing out here watching chickens for 30 minutes. What in the world are you doing? You're watching chickens. They're just sitting there scratching and pecking and stuff. But the thing is they have a great personality. So when you're watching them and you see how they're doing things, each one of them does something different. There's a pecking order, and there's all kinds of social stuff that goes on with the chickens, with birds in general, really. But with chickens, you get to see a lot of that a lot better than you would with any other type of fowl or anything like that. Same with ducks. If you have ducks that don't want to leave your property, then that works as well. Anyways, so they are really, really fun to watch, and I would recommend anybody who enjoys stuff like that to go ahead and get some chickens, because to watch them scratch and run backward and look around into the dirt is just hilarious. But the main advantage as to why we as preppers would have chickens is because they provide us tons of egg and tons of meat for very little work, especially if you know how to feed your chickens without using feed. We allowed them to eat a lot. They were free-ranging, and we brought them back to a coop every night. We allowed them to eat throughout the yards and stuff like that. But we also, during the wintertime, would supplement their diet and stuff with an organic feed. So we had basically free-ranging organic chickens, and they produced free-range organic eggs, cage-free, obviously, and they were some happy chickens. They were extremely happy, and anybody would be proud to eat their eggs. You could crack the eggs, and they took twice as much power just to crack the eggs. They were so strong and healthy, and then the yolks were really, really dark yellow, so you could tell that there was a lot of good cholesterol and a lot of really good fat and nutrients in the yolks and stuff like that. And not to mention, they were fresh. And if you get it from a grocery store, it's not going to be fresh. Believe it or not, a lot of the eggs that you get from a grocery store can be up to a month old, and actually probably a little more than that. But the thing is eggs last a really long time. When we bring in eggs, we would throw them on the countertop and just leave them in a bowl at room temperature, and they would still last several weeks to a month, and that is without them being refrigerated or anything. The disadvantages of having chickens is if you keep them in one spot for too long, or you go without cleaning their coop out, and you don't have to clean their coop out all the time. You just do it like every month or so, or every couple weeks or so. And the way that we did it was we did a really thick bedding inside their coop, and so we would remove that top layer, and then we would add a new top layer to it and that kind of thing. So what ended up happening is we would remove the top layer. That would be our new compost, and the bottom layer would stay there. We put a new top layer in, and then we would move that next time around as well. And then after a while, about 6 or 7 changes of their top bedding, you go ahead and you remove their bottom bedding as well. It's a lot better on the bedding, so it's just a lot better that way. But like I was saying, if you go too long with them in one spot, or you go without cleaning the coop, it's going to get really smelly, because birds, they pretty much just poop wherever they're at, and it's going to get smelly. You don't want to keep them in a pen either. The reason why a pen is bad, unless I'll get back to that. The reason why a pen is bad is because they're going to deplete whatever small food supply they had in the pen, and they're going to deplete the food, and they're not going to have anything to eat. You know, it's just, you want them to be the healthiest birds possible. That way, the food that you have is the most nutritious food possible. And believe me, it does make a difference. So don't keep them in one spot for too long. They will deplete their food supply. They will get rid of any grass that's in that area, and they will get really smelly. So the needs for the bird. They need a coop. And that's pretty simple. They need a small coop. It depends on the size of the bird. We had a coop that was about 6 foot by 6 foot, and it was only about 4 foot high. And we had like eight or 9 birds. But the thing is they only stayed in there for a few hours during the night, and then the rest of the time they were out free ranging. So if you have free ranging birds that they like going back into the coop at night, you don't need a huge coop for those birds. You probably, let me do the math here real quick. 6, 4, and that was 8 birds. So we 36 and 4. So we probably had about 18 cubic feet per bird. And that, if you think about square footage, though, as far as floor space, that's about 4.5 square feet per bird. So they don't need a lot of room, and that doesn't count the fact that we had like 3 or 4 different places for them to lay, which they almost never laid in, okay? They don't ever lay where they're supposed to lay. Your best bet is to find where they're laying and turn that into an easy access point for you, and then they will continue to lay there because that's their favorite spot. So they need the coop. They need a place to roost within the coop, okay? You need a place for them to roost. They are normal birds, and chickens love to roost. They love to be high up. They will find anything that they can roost on. And if you don't give them a roost, they will find some way to roost, okay? We need to keep them out of the weather and away from predators, okay? That's the main benefit of the coop. Otherwise, you could just have birds outside, and it wouldn't be a problem. But they have a lot of natural predators. The labor that's required to have chickens is to find and collect the eggs, close the coop at night, cleaning the coop about once every 2 to 3 weeks, and if you use that's if you use thick bedding only. You're going to have to clean out a little less frequently, but you're going to have to use a lot more bedding if you use a thin bedding, and you have to start cleaning it out for that, and you're cleaning the entire bed out. The food required is you want to free range them, and instead of giving them feed, if you have the possibility, and give them supplements and stuff that they can snack on. They love mealworms. Okay, mealworms, mealworms. We actually were growing mealworms for our chickens, and they loved it. And the cool thing about mealworms is you give them something high starch, like a potato, and that's all they do. They eat the potato, and they multiply. And as they multiply, every so often, you just take a cup of mealworms with the mealworm bedding and everything like that with it, and just go dump it in the where the chickens are at, and those chickens will eat that up quickly. You don't even have a chance to see them crawling around before the chickens are just out there destroying those mealworms. And obviously, mealworms are so easy to have that it's not economic to buy them, because you're going to get a small thing of old dried mealworms for $10-15, when you could have the same amount of mealworms that are live and moving around, and the chickens love them even more. You can have those mealworms available for pennies on the dollar. I'm telling you, they are really, really cheap to grow mealworms. So I didn't add that into the show notes, but mealworms. They like other worms as well, but these are the really easy ones to grow. All right. As far as the food, I talked about free ranging. You will probably need to supplement them on feed, especially whenever it gets wintertime, unless you have chickens that have hundreds of acres. But if you have chickens that have hundreds of acres, chances are is they're going to end up some other predator's dinner, so they're not going to be coming back. You kind of have to watch your chickens, okay? But everything that I'm talking about, just don't let it discourage you, because they are actually one of the easiest animals to care for. We cared for them for a long time on an urban lot. We cared for chickens on an urban lot, and it took about a year to a year and a half before anybody even knew we had them. That was pretty cool. But as far as the diseases, let's talk about the diseases. Oh, you know what? Let me back up. I was just thinking about the food and free ranging. Another really good way of doing it is a paddock shifting system. You want to paddock shift your chickens, and what that is it's like taking clockwork, okay? You divide the area that the chickens are going to be in, you divide that in like 4, 5, or 6 different areas fenced off, and you will shift the chickens from area to area every week or two and allow them to eat that area, but not eat it all the way down to the ground. You want them to eat it about halfway down and then move them to the next area. Let them eat the grass. Obviously they don't just sit there and eat grass, but some, they do eat some grass. So they'll be in there until the grass is about halfway down, and then they'll move to the next area. Obviously they prefer, all the bugs and everything else. But the thing is the grass is going to go away as well, proving that chickens do eat grass. It's just not what they prefer. Now I can move on. Disease concerns. They get worms, they get lice, they get mites. They can get sick. They get like a wheezy thing that's hard. It's really hard for them to breathe. So whenever they're breathing, you can just hear them going. It doesn't really sound like that. It sounds different, like a chicken doing it, and not like me. But they just start doing this wheezy thing whenever they start breathing, and you know that they're getting sick. And then they get some discolored combs and stuff like that. All right, so they can get sick, and that's why it's important that you keep them in a coop. But the thing is, the coop needs to have some ventilation, because you know as well as I that chickens can make the air very unbreathable. So you need to give them some ventilation in their coop so that their air quality can stay nice and high. And then obviously they get great air when they're out in the yard. All right, so we talked about diseases. It's best that they're free ranging. It's best that you have them organically fed. And the reason is because chicken eggs, organic free-range chicken eggs are high in demand, and they sell for a premium. They make it worth your while. If you use the chickens for your own needs and then sell the extras, you can have plenty of money. Our chickens, that's what we did, and our chickens paid for their feed every single month. And we didn't have to give them a ton of feed, but especially during the winter months, we had to buy them feed. So with the amount of money that they brought us in, they definitely paid for their feed plus some. All right, so the next animal that we're going to talk about is going to be bees. If you are not a member of my email list, you should probably go over there and sign up. I don't know why you're not a member of my email list, but if you sign up for my email list, okay, at theprepperpodcast.com, then there is a beekeeping book that I have written that I will give you for free, okay? So, I do know about bees. The advantage of having bees is they are also enjoyable to watch the busyness of them and watch them come and go. They're great pollinators. They generate honey for us to eat and make stuff with. They generate wax, and beeswax is very expensive. They also have propolis. Propolis is what they actually use for sealing up their stuff, and it's pretty cool. And they are even less maintenance than chickens. But you can actually, if you take the bees, here's kind of a cool thing, a cool idea that I recently got that's not in my book. But if you take bees, and there's a small entrance where the bees have to come in, and you make them have to follow some sort of channel in order to get into the hive, then you put like some screening material or something like that below them, and as they come in, the pollen will knock off of their legs and stuff like that, and it will fall into a little reservoir area where you can catch the pollen, and now you've got pure bee pollen. And bee pollen is worth a lot of money. People actually sell it, and there are a lot of health advantages to straight up bee pollen. Just like there's health advantages to straight up honey that hasn't, you need raw honey. Raw honey is really great for you, and bee pollen is great for you as well. And obviously, beeswax and propolis. So bees are really great for us. And if you're not keeping bees, this is probably the first thing that I recommend you keep, because bees are really easy and they give you so much expensive stuff. And let's not even talk about the mead that you can make. The mead, this is basically honey wine that you can make from the honey. The disadvantages of having bees, although there are not many, they can sting you, which is a problem if you're allergic to honeybees. And there's some upfront cost, probably if you have $600, $700, you're going to be able to get all the equipment that you need to start keeping bees. But the amount that they bring back to you by pollinating all your plants and stuff like that is just going to be so much. It's worth it. It's worth keeping bees. And like I said, they are the easiest thing to have on a farm or a homestead. So why not start with bees? And then the next thing that I recommend is those chickens that I was talking about. The needs... They need a hive. They need a sugary food during winter. I recommend storing honey for them during the wintertime. That's what the honey is for them to eat, and they make enough honey for them to have a reserve during the wintertime. They make way more than what they need. So we start pulling the honey, we save the honey, and we give it back, their own honey, back to them during the wintertime. That way, they're not just drinking crappy sugar water. They're actually getting the stuff that they need. That's why they make it that way. So, sugary food during the wintertime. They need minimal human interaction in the hive. You want to stay out of the hive as much as possible and never go into the hive during the winter, because you can introduce so many sicknesses into the hive that it's just best to stay out during the wintertime. And you're probably only going to check on them a couple times. All right, You also want water nearby. You want water near your bees and lots of flowers. Here's the thing. If you don't have it, they're going to find it. And if they find a spot that has it, that is quite a ways away, and they need to go there every single time that they need their food or water, well, they're going to go somewhere else, and they're going to stay. They're not going to stay in your hive. So you need for them to have lots of plants to pollinate, and you need to have lots of water nearby. Okay? They drink water just like every other insect or animal. And here's the thing. If they don't have water close by, which I recommend keeping like a kiddie pool or something, a clean kiddie pool or something like that, right beside the hive or underneath it or whatever, if they don't have the water that they need, they will go to your neighbor's pool and get it themselves. So you don't want all your bees going over to your neighbor's place. If you're in the country, obviously this doesn't really matter, but you still want to provide them with what they need so that they don't leave. But you don't want your bees over in your neighbor's pool stinging the crap out of everybody and getting you in trouble for having them. All right? The labor is probably consisting of harvesting honey and wax twice a year. That's it. You're going to harvest it a couple times a year, and you're going to save it up. You're going to split them if the population gets too high. Okay, you'll have to split up the hives. The food, they generate their own food, so you're not going to need to actually supply them with any, but you're probably going to want to supplement their own food back to them in winter, and let them keep some of that. And obviously, when you're taking the honey, you don't take all the honey because they have to live off of that. Disease concerns with bees are varroa mites, wax moths, tracheal mites, nosema, American foul brood, European foul brood, chalk brood, colony collapse disorder. And colony collapse disorder is really just, there's a big to-do about the colony collapse disorder, CCD. Okay, I'm going to start calling it that from now on. There's a big thing about CCD and whether it has to do with all the spraying and chemicals and stuff like that. But here's the fact. CCD is an unknown thing. All they know is 1 minute the bees are there doing their thing, and the next minute they're not. Okay, so that's colony collapse disorder, and nobody really knows what causes it and why it happens. So everybody just makes up stuff and says that that's the main reason why you get colony collapse disorder. But that's the big news in the beekeeping world is that CCD, and it's an unknown thing. So just treat them well. Stay out of their hive when you don't have to be in it, and they will be fine. So they provide you honey, wax, propolis. It's also great ways of making things. You can make lots of things with these, and you can make lots of money with these. These are also really expensive. This kind of stuff, if it's raw, goes for a premium. Like I said, pollen goes for a really large premium. So go ahead and check out my beekeeping book for more information. The next thing we're going to talk about is goats. All right, some of these animals I'm going to get into I don't know as much about, but it's important that you just understand at least some of the stuff that I'm talking about, okay? So I'm not going to just leave out an animal because I don't know a whole lot about it. Now, I do know quite a bit about goats, but the advantages of goats is they are well adapted. They're well adaptable. They can adapt to almost any situation that you put them in. They provide you with meat, milk, and some of them can provide you with fleece. If you wonder where the natural fleece would come from, a lot of it can come from goats. The disadvantages of goats is they graze too much and they will destroy things if left out in the open. They are escape artists. So, goats are they are very social creatures, so they are very fun to be around and they are very fun to watch. But the problem with goats is that they are escape artists and they will get out and they will eat all kinds of things. I've heard of them. I've known them to eat couches and all kinds of stuff. So don't let them get into anything, and definitely don't let them get into your crops. That's bad. But goats are really great. If you want to put them in an area with poison ivy, they will get rid of that poison ivy because they love it. All right. The labor with them is once you kid a goat, let me change that. Once your mother goat has babies, then you will probably milk them about twice a day. It's kind of like keeping sheep with a little less watching. Food. They eat lots of weeds. Weeds are more important than good grass, believe it or not. They probably need a house, a hutch, or a barn for keeping them out of foul weather. So you're going to want to get them something. And you know what? They also need a place. They need a place for, hold on one second. They need a place so that they can be goats and perch up on things. They basically like to play king of the mountain, okay? So they want to climb up on things. Give them some things that they can climb on, and you're going to have some happy goats. Disease concerns with goats is mineral deficiencies and internal parasites. They are known for their goat milk and goat cheese and goat soaps and yogurts. So goats are also a really good thing to have, and that might be an option for a lot of you guys that don't want to have cattle yet. All right? The next thing I'm going to talk about is guineas. That's right. I said guineas. They are essentially the farmer's security system. The advantage of guineas are they are very self-sufficient. I know most of the people that have guineas, and they are very loud people, so don't have them in an urban area unless you want people knocking on your door telling you to get rid of them. But the advantage of guineas is that they are very self-sufficient. Most people that have guineas, and they can have them because of the noise and stuff like that, most of them do not have to feed their guineas. All right, the guineas are really good at doing it themselves. They are self-sufficient. They are an alarm system. They are loud because they are very territorial, and they have a different sound when they're talking to each other versus when somebody is there that doesn't belong there and they aren't happy. So they are a great alarm system, and then they are pest control. They are very good pest control. If you have ticks in an area, throw about 6 guineas in that area, and I promise you, you will not have ticks. After just a few weeks, your ticks will be gone. You will not have any more problems. And if one tick gets into that area, they will get rid of it. They will erase it. They will erase all of your tick and flea troubles, and they get rid of a lot of mosquito larvae and stuff like that. The disadvantage of having guineas is they are extremely, extremely loud, and they can also disappear unknowingly. I know that some people have had guineas that just kind of disappear on them, and I don't know what causes that to happen, but these were free range, so it's not like they weren't happy. However, we know free range guineas, they can just run off because they are just out in the open, and they were unfenced free range, okay? They need room to move around. They're not worth keeping if you confine them up in a space, okay? Like I said, the biggest thing with the guineas is an alarm system and pest control. So you want to put them out there with all the other animals to get rid of all the bugs and so that you know when people are showing up. But they're not worth having if you have to feed them a lot and confine them to a space. It's not worth the trouble. There's very little labor involved with them. They don't need any food, like I said, if you have them out there correctly. And they are good for eggs as well. I guess I didn't say that in the advantages, but they're good for eggs. So I would only keep them for eggs and as an alarm system and for tick control. Otherwise, it's not really worth getting them over getting some other type of fowl, okay? The other thing that I told you that we used to keep all the time were ducks. We had we kept khaki Campbells. All right. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to have to speed up a little bit because I'm already hitting on 35 minutes here. All right. Ducks. The advantages of ducks is they are larger and they have larger and richer eggs than chickens do. Okay. They are darker in color in the yolk, and they are. A small duck egg is the size of a very large chicken egg, if that does anything to explain to you the size of a duck egg. If you take a double yolk chicken egg or something like that and you put it beside a really small duck egg, then you're going to see about what a size difference it is, okay? Those are about similar in size. There's less chance of infection on a duck than a chicken. And the disadvantages is the females are noisy as can be. There's a reason why we got rid of our ducks. And the female is the only one worth keeping. All right? So you only get a male with your female so that you can have more ducks. The females are very, very loud. Okay? You need to also have a pond or a duck pool for the ducks. You need to have something like that for your ducks, or else they're not going to be happy. And we never clipped the wings of our ducks, believe it or not. They were so happy, and they had grown up with us. They were so happy that they never wanted to leave, even though they could fly. Now that, if you have ducks that will not leave, even if you don't clip their wings, you have a happy duck. The labor required with the ducks is you need to confine them at night, just like the chickens, and find and collect eggs, just like chickens. You need to clean the shelter, just like chickens, except ducks are a little messier. They're kind of nasty. And if you're using like a duck pool or something like that, you need to replace the water every 3 days, because after about 3 days, that water is nasty. And here's the thing, all right, I told you that we had chickens and ducks, and chickens were funny. Well, when you're replacing the water in their little pool or whatever, ducks are hilarious, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna replace the water. It's gonna be nice and clean, and the first thing that happens is those ducks are gonna jump into that water. They're gonna muck it up, and they're gonna have sex. All right. So for some reason, you give them fresh water, they got to get it muddy, and they got to have sex in it. That's just what they want. And then other needs for the ducks is they need a duck house. And the way we had one set up is we had a dog house with one whole wall on the side of the dog house. That whole wall was removable so that we could get to the eggs and do the feed and stuff like that in the duck house. But the door, we actually had another door on it that the ducks used, and we latched it at night. So we latched them in there at night, and we opened it up in the morning, and we would get to their feed and their eggs by opening up a full wall. All right, and that's just to get away from weather and predators also. The food that you give a duck is pretty much the exact same as a chicken. As a matter of fact, when we supplemented the feed for our chickens and ducks, we used the same feed. So it's pretty easy to keep ducks and chickens together. They don't get a lot of the same diseases, and they eat the same food. So it's a very good thing to do, is to keep your ducks and chickens together in an area. Just be careful, because sometimes your ducks can kind of try to overtake your chickens. We had one chicken that hated our mallard, or the drake, I'm sorry. The chicken hated our drake because the drake kept pulling, like kept trying to defeather the chicken. So we had to chase him off of her a couple times. They have almost no disease concerns as far as that goes. Back to the eggs, I want to tell you that you can get a lot more money for duck eggs than you can chicken eggs. Now, I was looking up what we could pull for duck eggs whenever we first got our ducks, and I saw some outrageous numbers. I'm here to tell you that you're not going to get some outrageous amount of money for duck eggs. You're not going to get it. You're just not. But you can probably get twice the money for duck eggs that you get for chicken eggs, because people and bakeries, they love to have duck eggs for their baking because it makes everything rich and it sticks together better. So duck eggs are better than chicken eggs for baking and stuff like that. And they are a little bit richer in color and richer in taste, but to be honest with you, a lot of times we couldn't really tell the difference. We just had them because we wanted them. We thought it would be cool to have them. Now let's move on to geese. The advantages of geese is that they are great for weed removal. They're hardy like ducks, so there's less infection, and they provide lots and lots of meat. Geese are great for the meat, and the eggs are huge. They are essentially the cattle of a small homestead. I'm telling you, geese are a lot like cattle, as in they eat grass and stuff like that. The disadvantages with geese is they can be noisy and they can be very territorial. Sometimes they will attack people. If you get the right ones, they may not attack people, but that all depends on what you get. You have to give and take some. If you want some that's really good with people, then they may not be really good against predators. If you want the ones that are really mean against people, then they're probably going to be really mean against predators and take some stuff out. So you gotta give a little bit on one or the other, and find a good middle ground there. They need shelter at night. The labor for them is very similar to ducks. And if you have chickens, like I was talking about, you can go ahead and paddock shift those chickens, like I was saying, and then right after the chickens go through, the next time you paddock shift, you move the chickens over, you can move the geese in to where the chickens just were. So you can paddock shift both the chickens and the geese and bring the geese in right behind the chickens. The food is similar to chickens, just they eat a lot more grass and weeds. And the disease concerns are very similar to the ducks, which is almost non-existent. They're great for meat sales, okay? A lot of people love geese. All right, so the next animal is quail. A lot of fowl in here. And the next one is quail. The advantages of quail is they're small enough to be kept in cages, and they breed readily. And then they take up a very little space. I know of someone who is keeping quail in their garage. That's right. They are keeping it in their garage. And not only are they just keeping it in their garage, but they are only keeping it in one little bitty area of their garage. I think this person has a couple hundred quail, and they're only keeping them in like a 3x8 area. So it's a very small footprint to keep a lot of quail. And they've got a whole system going on. They don't actually feed them grass or anything. Like they're not grass fed or anything like that. They just feed them. They feed them organic poultry food. That's all they feed the quail. So the advantages is they're small enough to be kept in that little bitty space. The disadvantages is similar to chickens. All right, they have a lot of the same predators, and they have a lot of the same disease concerns and stuff like that. But as far as the predators, it's actually worse for the quail, because the quail are a lot smaller, and a lot more hawks are going to come after the quails. Okay, the needs are also the same as the chickens. If they are kept in a cage, though, they will need to be fed regular chicken food, regular chicken feed, if they're kept in a cage. So the labor involved with them is feeding them daily. If you have them outside, paddock shifting them, or you're going to have to clean up if you've got them in cages in your garage like this one guy has. I don't have quail, so I'm just telling you from his experience, not mine. The food. Quail is it's kind of like eating like a Cornish hen or something. Quail is even smaller than that. But the thing is, you're going to have a whole quail. So you're going to clean it out. You're going to, you can just take regular scissors and cut the feet and stuff like that off. But when you cook it, you're going to cook a whole thing. You're not going to try to debone all the little bones out of it and stuff like that. You're just going to cook it as a whole thing, and you're going to eat a few quail whenever you're eating. All right. They're very lean. They have a good flavor when they're roasted, and The issue is that meat is not going to sell very well. At least right now it's not. If you're planning on the end of the world showing up, then I'm sure somebody's going to want some quail meat eventually because they don't have anything else. All right, so we're at 45 minutes. I guess I need to speed up even faster because we're going too slow with all these animals. Next thing I'm going to talk about is hogs. The advantages of hogs is they will eat almost anything and they get fat very easily and quickly. The disadvantages is it wrecks really good grass if they are not ranged or paddocked well. So, believe it or not, hogs are supposed to be wooded creatures. They're supposed to be in forested areas. So guess where it is the best place to keep your hogs? That's right, ding, 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 in a forested area. The disadvantages are that they wreck good grass and they're not packed well. The needs are shelter at farrowing, but there's not much else. They need mud baths for their skin so that they don't dry out. And it also keeps a lot of the bugs and stuff away. The food is pretty much waste items. Items that almost any other animal will waste, and that's almost anything. Disease concerns is mastitis after farrowing, and then they are really great for ham and bacon and all kinds of pork products, and this stuff is easy to sell. And a organic free-ranged hog goes for quite a bit of money nowadays. So just keep that in mind. The next thing that we are going to discuss is sheep. I have no desire to keep sheep. The advantages of sheep is that they graze very well. They provide lambs, milk, wool, and meat. Now, I don't desire to have sheep, but I'm telling you that lamb meat goes for a lot of money if you are willing to sell them to certain individuals. The disadvantages of sheep is they are also escape artists. They are disease-ridden, and they require a lot more attention. They require shepherding and fencing. You have to continually watch them and trim them whenever their coat gets a little longer. They graze for their food. That's pretty much all you're going to do. You don't want them in a little confined area. You want to put them in an area where they can graze. Disease concerns are the bowfly strike, foot rot, and lots of other deadly diseases. It is a pricey meat, and cheese. The cheese is also very good for selling. You get quite a bit of money from it. Catfish. I bet you thought I was only going to talk about regular, mammal-type animals, didn't you? Catfish is really great for keeping on a homestead. They are inexpensive and they grow rapidly. You can keep them in a barrel if you want. If you're in the right area, you can have catfish growing in barrels. All right. Obviously, you have to feed them daily. You have to do things with their water and stuff like that. But you don't have to do very much with them. And the only disadvantage I really know of with catfish is their fins hurt. I remember my first time getting hit by the fin of a catfish, and it hurt like crazy. And, of course, my dad, freaking rubbed the catfish belly on me and stuff like that, said that it got rid of the sting and all that. But, watch out for the fins on a catfish, okay? But they are some of the greatest fried fish that you can find in the southern United States, at least. And I know walleye is really good from the north and stuff like that. I know a lot of people from up in Michigan and things of that nature, and I give them a lot of crap. I always tell them that walleye sucks and that catfish is really good. But to be honest with you, both of them are really good. Catfish is a little more oily than walleye, I think. They don't need very much. If you're in a hurry to get your numbers up, you just add feed and earthworms into their water daily, and they will multiply rapidly. There's hardly any labor. You just keep some grass carp to keep the algae at bay. You keep the algae out of the water. You keep feeding them, and that's about it. Let's see. Fried catfish is great and could be sold for a decent price. I bet it could be sold for even better if you filleted the catfish, added the fry to the catfish, your own organic homemade ingredient, right, to make the fry, and then you freeze them that way and make just a straight from frozen to the hot grease catfish. That would probably sell pretty well at a farmer's market. Next is rabbits. We also had rabbits a while back, and my big thing with rabbits is they always had diseases. The advantages of rabbits is they are cheap and they are quiet. They handle well, and they provide lots and lots of meat. Okay, they propagate a lot. If you don't keep them apart, they will continue to propagate, and they will continue to produce meat to the point that you can't keep up with it, and your feed bill will go way up. But the thing is you will have meat because of that food bill going up. Disadvantages is the meat is cheap. If you were trying to sell it right now, the meat is pretty cheap, so don't plan on making a lot. And their needs are a dry, draft-free area. You need to keep them out of extreme heat. You need to protect them from extreme cold. Not just cold, but extreme cold, okay? We're not talking like, 50 degrees or 40 degrees outside. Rabbits have fur. That's kind of what that fur is for. But usually they burrow, so you have to think about it. They need to stay out of extreme cold. So what we did is we kept them in a very windless area away from the sun. We kept them behind one of our sheds, and it worked really well. And then obviously we put things above them so that the rain would stay off of them and predators couldn't get to them. So we did have rabbits. We did keep them in cages, but we kept them in separate cages. And, they ended up getting sick and stuff like that. And we dealt with a lot of the problems with them. But they were pretty easy to keep. All right. We just stopped keeping them because we didn't have the time at the moment. We want to buy some more property before we start building our animal supply up again. So we are just moving on to other forms of prepping while we are waiting that out. All right. Let's see. You need to feed them and check up on them every day, probably a few times a day, because they will get rid of all their water probably within, I would say check on their water 3 times a day. If you are checking on them 3 times a day, then chances are is they're going to be fine. All right. They eat food, or they eat hay, grasses, vegetables, and feed. Now, here's the thing with all the vegetables and stuff. Everybody thinks that vegetables are great for the rabbits. Well, the thing is the vegetables for rabbits is a lot like candy for us. We can live off of it. Or I wouldn't even say candy. Let's say junk food for us. We can live off of it, but we're not going to be healthy. It's going to suck. And it doesn't have all the nutrients that they need. So good alfalfa or something like that is really good for them. The problem with buying alfalfa at the store is most of that crap is sprayed as well. So I wouldn't do that. I would just get some yourself, okay? Disease concerns are ear mites. They get colds. Keep them separated from chickens because a lot of the same diseases that hurt chickens can hurt the rabbits. Don't try to sell the rabbits, just eat them, okay? Back to the ear mites. Ours got ear mites, and we ended up just putting like a coconut oil mixture in there, and it got rid of the ear mite issue. The next thing I'm going to talk about is cattle. This is the very last animal that we're going to be discussing as well, so we're actually doing not too bad on time. The advantages of cattle is they are gentle and they graze well. They're gentle unless you're behind them. If you stand behind a cow, you're an idiot. You are going to get kicked, and there's a very good chance that they will break a bone or they can kill you, especially if they hit you in the heart. So do not stand behind cattle. The disadvantage is they are large and they are tough to handle. Now, you can guide them, but if they decide that they're not going to go where you want them to go, then it's going to take you a lot to get them there. So they are large and stronger than you, and they were tough to handle. They need shelter during cold weather and wintry months, but that's about it. They like to graze, and they need lots of land to graze. And there are smaller cattle that can work on a smaller property. But I'm going to tell you guys that even a miniature cow is really big. So don't think just because it has the word miniature in there that you're going to be able to keep it on a quarter acre. You probably could keep it on a quarter acre, but you're going to have a lot of feed needs. You're probably going to want to, once you let it have a calf or something like that, you're going to need to milk twice a day. You want to rotate or paddock shift your cattle so that they're not eating everything down to the grass. And the food that they eat is good grass and feed or hay during the winter's months, and salt block. They like salt blocks, so give them one of those. Disease concerns is mastitis when milking, mineral deficiencies when calving, and they also get foot problems as well from all the mud and like trudging and stomping. They are great and easy to. It is great and easy to sell their milk and their butter. And then you can also make cheese, yogurt, ice cream. You can just use the cream for other things. The cream is a very valuable thing. We make butter at home now. We use their cream and we make butter with it, and what's left over is butter and buttermilk. That's pretty much. You're basically just going to blend up the cream until you get butter, and everything else is buttermilk. That's all it is. And then you get calves, you get beef. Okay, so that's about it. You're going to get a really nice juicy steak from your free-ranged grass-fed cattle. Okay. There are a lot of problems with cattle nowadays in the marketplace. Most of it is pumped full of hormones, and it has a lot of corn feed, and that brings a lot more diseases. So don't corn feed your cattle, okay? You're just wasting money, and you're going to give yourself poor quality meat, and you're going to give your cattle and possibly you some disease, okay? So don't do that. There's a call to action, okay? I got a call to action here, and this is going to be the end of the episode. The call to action today is I want you to decide if any of the animals that I've talked about today are possible in your situation. And if you say yes or no, I want you to think about why or why not these animals are good for you. If you decide that you should be in a different position, and that means like in a different location, in a different job, in a different area, whatever you decide is the reason why or why not that you can have or can or can't have these animals, then you need to decide if you should be somewhere else doing something else, and then create a plan to get there. That's it. I want you to create a plan to get there. And speaking of plans, remember, guys, I'm coming out with this preparedness budget, and it is a Dave Ramsey style budget. And I'm still open to take beta testers, but I'm only going to take 5 to 6 beta testers. I've decided. Okay, and I've already got one of those spots filled up, and there's only about 4 spots left. So hurry up and let me know if you are going to be a Prepper Podcast, Prepper Survival Budget Beta Tester. That's a mouthful. But if you want to be a beta tester, let me know. If you do not want to be a beta tester, then just wait a month or two, and hopefully not that long. But I got to get the beta testers and let them try it out for a while. But I will start putting that on my website, and you can purchase that. It is a Dave Ramsey style budget, but the budget is designed, unlike Dave Ramsey's budget, it is designed for those of us that think preparedness is more important than some of the other things. It is designed to help you from destroying your finances and destroying your home life while you are trying to prepare, because a lot of people go crazy whenever they get into preparedness, and that is not good. Just this budget will save you a lot of money from not budgeting. It will save you a lot of money, and it will provide you with a very clear-cut plan on how to use your money effectively to get to a a standard self-reliant position. Okay. Well, that's the end of episode 21. I appreciate all of you guys that listen to me. This is Ken. See you next week. Signing out.